And we're live. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining. We are here with Sapir Handelman. Sapir is an Israeli scholar, a peace activist, and the founder of Minds of Peace, which is an organization that is attempting to achieve peace through public negotiations. Sapir, it's great to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
This is long overdue. I almost feel a little ashamed that I haven't had you on yet, because I've known you since the very beginning of my journey in the peace building space, and I'll share with the viewers how we met. I was walking around Tel Aviv, and this was right when I got interested in the whole concept of reconciliation. I started learning about Palestinians and started engaging with them. And then I saw a Palestinian flag in Tel Aviv. I'm like, that's weird. As liberal as Tel Aviv is, you're not going to see a Palestinian flag there. So I started approaching it, and then I see next to it there's an Israeli flag, and I get closer, and I see just a table of people sitting around negotiating something. I'm like, this is fascinating. So I said, I went to some guy there. I said, bring me to your leader, and then they brought me to you. And then we became friends. I helped you guys organize some of these negotiations, and I just found it to be such an inspiring concept, one that we need more of. So when I came and saw that table of people negotiating, what were they doing? Maybe we'll start with that. What exactly was going on there?
You have an Israeli team and a Palestinian team, people from all the political spectrum. You had settlers, right-wingers, and the Palestinians the same. Of course, you don't have people from the Hamas. They will not come to negotiate.
Unfortunately.
And they have limited time to reach two agreements. The first agreement, back then we call it trust building measure. Now we call it the startup agreement. What can be done tomorrow morning in order to build a working trust? How can we start to establish a momentum for a strategic plan for peace? And once we achieve the first agreement, the trust building or the startup agreement, they have to negotiate what is the solution to the conflict, 1 state, 2 states, 3 states, whatever they want, and to discuss 4 core issues, such as Jerusalem, borders, security, and so on. Just want to mention that the first agreement is very challenging and is very important, and it's very difficult, because when you speak about trust, Israelis do not believe one word of Palestinians, the Palestinians do not believe one word of Israelis. So what we want to achieve is something that we call working trust. Working trust, it's not because I love you. I want to show you that I want to reach a peace agreement because of my interest. And he has to show me that he wants to reach peace agreement because of his interest. And another difficult issue is everyone speaking about stop violence. However, violence is a broad concept that means different things to different people. For example, prisoners, and I'm not talking about the assassination of kids, assassinators of kids. Violence, prisoners mean for Israelis criminals or terrorists, and for Palestinians are freedom fighters. And the same in the West Bank. Checkpoints in the West Bank for Israelis mean security, for Palestinians mean pure violence. So you have to negotiate the meaning of violence. It's very difficult. Once you reach this agreement, then you go to the second agreement, and this is a conclusive peace pact.
So that's a little bit about the format. Now, what inspired you to do this? What makes you believe that this is what's needed when, peace has been tried and failed? What's different about this approach?
Yeah, since you mentioned at the beginning that I'm a scholar, so I'm a student of conflict. And I studied revolutionary peacemaking process in South Africa and in Northern Ireland. And in the 70s of the last century, the most difficult and entrenched conflict in the world were the struggle against apartheid in South Africa, the troubles in Northern Ireland, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 20 years later, this was in the 70s. 20 years later, beyond any expectations, the first two experience a revolutionary transformation, and we are collapsing. The question, what have been done there? In both cases, there were visionary leaders that understood that without the people it's not going to work. Because peace process, progress, violence increase. And then everyone believed that the other side is not human beings, and all these repertoires coming back. So if we take, for example, South Africa, de Klerk released Mandela from jail. It's a strong leader move. They almost assassinated him and shook South Africa. And both of them has different vision how the new South Africa is not going to look like. And I believe that in a couple of months they could reach agreement. However, both visionary leaders understood that without the people it's not going to work. So they established a major public negotiating congress that called multi-party talks, and the official name was CODESA, Convention of Democratic South Africa. They invited all the political parties to a major congress to negotiate solution to the conflict. Under one condition, that every political party who participate in this congress have to agree to non-violent principles. And as I said in the beginning, violence means different things to different people. So before the operation of the Congress, for 2 years, they negotiated the meaning of violence. Unbelievable. After they reached agreement, they established CODESA. And guess what? CODESA couldn't reach agreement, it collapsed. And if we say that peace process progress, violence increase, during the peace process, more than 15,000 people were killed in political violence. This is unbelievable. After the establishment of CODESA 1, they established CODESA 2. And CODESA 2 collapsed also, they couldn't reach agreement. However, if in CODESA 1 there was 19 political parties, in CODESA 2 there were 26 political parties because the people begin to be involved and didn't want violence anymore. So the violent political parties agreed to participate. After the collapse of CODESA 2, there's a major violent episode that shook South Africa, the assassination of Chris Hani, who was a black communist leader. So then Mandela went to the press and talked to his people and told them that if they're going to take revenge, South Africa is going to slide into civil war. He and de Klerk established the last Congress. They changed its name. Instead of CODESA, they called it Multi-Party Negotiating Forum. And basically, Mandela and de Klerk manipulated. Every tough conflict they took to this, every tough issue they took to the side, reached agreement between themselves, brought it to the discussion in the assembly, in this major Congress, after they established a broad coalition of the moderate center against the extremes. Basically, they reached the agreement while giving the impression that everyone is involved in this. And this is how it's ended. And in Northern Ireland, it's happened quite the same. So one of my first questions was how we establish this kind of Congress, how we establish our CODESA. And I don't see visionary leaders not on the Israeli side and not on the Palestinian side. So I was naive enough to think that this can think and grow from the grassroots level. And this was the logic of public negotiations. And I show that if you take people from all the political spectrum, and if they agree to the rules of the game, and the rules of the game is not to demean each other, not to go to historical debate, I did to you, you did to me, most of the time they reach agreement. And I thought that this might create a momentum for this public negotiating Congress, but I didn't succeed to create a momentum, and I don't know how to lead it, to create it. In all the example that I have, this kind of major peacemaking institution, visionary leaders come and created it. However, in South Africa, the inspiration came from grassroots like us, and it took 40 or 50 years to Mandela to come to implement it. Yeah.
So inspired by both Northern Ireland and South Africa. And these public negotiations both played a role in them solving the conflicts they had there. So it's not just theoretical. This is a tried and tested method.
Sure. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So now at this point, I think you've probably done, how many negotiations have you hosted so far?
We did around, I think, more than 50 public negotiating assemblies in different forms, size, and locations. We even brought 2,000 Israelis and Palestinians to Rabin Square.
I was
One
there.
Friday morning, you spoke there.
I spoke,
You
right?
was one of the organizers.
True. I'll share the video clip of me speaking later if anyone wants to see.
Yeah, but just, I don't know if people can imagine, one morning, Friday morning, 18 or 19 buses from the West Bank are coming to Rabin Square, and 1,000 Palestinians are getting out with the flags to negotiate peace with the Israeli public. The Israeli government, which was one of Netanyahu's government, approved it. So, and then we have another plan. We want, after this kind of thing, we said that we didn't get any momentum, didn't create a momentum. And to tell you about what was the next step, Adar?
Yeah, but I'm also interested in the momentum part. It seems like the Israeli media they don't like this for some reason. They don't come and pick up on it, right? There was very limited media coverage when we did the big one. Why do you think that is?
It's amazing. Yeah. First of all, we don't have good public relations. This is one. Second, when we did it in Rothschild Boulevard, and 300 Israelis and Palestinians, so there was a report, a very nice report in the main TV New, Mabat Lechadashot. But it's very limited. Look, first of the reason, people from the media did not believe the 1,000 Palestinians going to Rabin Square.
Right.
I remember one of the main TV reporter, his daughter is friend of my daughter. When I told him, don't bullshit me, it's not going to happen. Third, the Israeli media is very skeptical. They believe they saw everything. Take, for example, the Oslo peace process. When there were leaks that something is going on in Oslo, the Israeli media said, nah, it's not important. It's another fantasy of Shimon Peres, who was the foreign minister then. So for them, it was very helpful because they needed the secrecy. But we need the publicity. So for us, it's not helpful. And I think the media and the Israeli public are desperate. And I'm talking as Israeli. I don't want to talk on behalf of the Palestinians. I guess the situation is not much better than here, or maybe worse, but I don't want to speak on their behalf.
And then there were a few more, and then COVID hit, and there was a major slowdown because people couldn't assemble, right? But now, as of late, you're back.
Yeah, it's a point that we should stay a little bit and speak a little bit about it.
Sure.
After we brought 2,000 people to the Rabin Square, and we saw that we didn't create a momentum, we thought maybe we can change plans. First of all, we tried to institutionalize. So students in high school negotiated, in universities, and this is one. Second, we established something that we call Congress of the People. We took 120 Israelis and Palestinians, and for half a year, they negotiate 3 alternative solutions in different locations. We reached 3 agreements, 1 state, 2 states, a confederation. And the idea was to have a huge conference of thousands of people, present to them the agreement, discussing it, and let them vote in ballot boxes about the preferred options. But as you said, COVID started, so we couldn't implement it. So we have three nice agreements. We have how to compare between themselves, and nothing happened. So COVID, we weren't active during the COVID. And then the next stage was the 7th of October, which changed everything.
Mm. So, and I was in the US for 2 years, for the most of the past 2 years. So we kind of weren't in touch. So since October 7th, has there not been anything since Hamburg a few weeks ago?
No. After the 7th of October, everyone was in shock. So we didn't know what to do. And to do this kind of thing in Israel, it's impossible. First of all, it's the middle of the war. People are split. There's different people and different opinion. And plus, you cannot bring Palestinians to Israel anymore, at this stage at least.
Right. There's no permits.
So we decided to try to do it abroad and to see what we can do. So the first assembly that we did was in Munich in the Goethe Institute. They remember us because we did once in Tel Aviv, and there was a very nice report by the BBC. So I and my friends organized the Israeli delegation. And Professor Muhammad Dejani from East Jerusalem, who is not a citizen of Israel, is a resident of Israel and a citizen of Jordan, organized the Palestinian delegation. And Professor Dejani is a very interesting figure. Maybe you want to interview him.
Yeah, I will have him on soon for sure. Definitely worth interviewing.
So anyway, he was the dean of El-Quds University, and he took Palestinians to Auschwitz. Now he's taking them to Auschwitz, but he took them to Yad Vashem. Not because he loves Israelis, because he wants to educate them how Israeli think that they will not know how to approach us. So anyway, they fired him because the problems we have with Israel, in Israel, I guess they have in the Palestinian society, he have to step down from his position. Anyway, he organized the Palestinian delegation and I organized the Israeli one. And we went to Hamburg. And it was a fascinating experience. It was unbelievable. The first thing, I have my own speech, and Dejani probably knows his own stuff. But he told me, you open and then I speak. So I opened and presented the idea. Then Dejani gave a brilliant speech. And during his brilliant speech, he said that you cannot make religious people secular. The only way to fight religious extremism is by moderate Islam. And he started explaining it. I don't know if it's true or not true, but we were all fascinated. Now, when I came to this assembly, I was sure that we will not be able to reach agreement. Because in the Israeli delegation, when you are negotiating in this kind of assemblies, the negotiation are a couple of levels. One level is between the two delegations, and another level is within each delegation. Because Adar, you and us think differently. So we have to negotiate our differences within the delegation. And in the Israeli delegation, there were people who were strong for one state, and there were people who were strong for two states. I said, Sapir, we'll never reach an agreement here. Maybe we reach to agreement and publicize it. So the first move of Dejani was by speaking about moderate Islam. We were very fascinated. His second move during the negotiation, he functioned more as a chief negotiator than as a moderator, because we're supposed to be co-moderators. Dejani resettled the negotiation table. said, instead of thinking Israeli versus Palestinians, our problem is the moderate against the extremes. So we have to think about how to marginalize the voice of the extremes and strengthen the moderates. We were all fascinated. It's something that we can all extreme. And after we brought all the momentum, we said, and if you want to strengthen the moderate, you have to go for two-state solution. When he said it in the right moment, the Israeli team united. If two-state solution is going to be the solution that brings peace, we are for two-state solution. So he solved all the dispute in the Israeli delegation. Now, it was very difficult for 3 days. We reached an agreement. The first chapter was that they called to the release of all the hostages and asked all, like Mandela did, all the extremism in Gaza to throw the weapons to the sea. And then we continue to reach agreement. So this was the first one. Then we did the second one in London, which was very, very, very difficult. In the Israeli delegation, there was Maoz Magen, that his parents were slaughtered in the 7th of October.
Maoz Inon. Maoz Inon?
No, his brother. Magen.
Okay.
Magen Inon. His
Magen
brother
Inon.
was. Yeah. So his parents were slaughtered on the 7th of October. And there were in the Palestinian side people who also, suffer from the Gaza crisis. Many people came from the assembly, Muslims. It was extremely difficult. But we reached to agreement. We again, two-state solution and how to solve the Gaza crisis. This is only principles. And then we came to Hamburg, to Giga, to this famous institution when you participated. This was the third one. All of them happened after the 7th of October. And the next event are going to be much more dramatic.
Is there one planned yet?
We think about the following project. And Dario, the first one who hear it.
Well, me and all the viewers.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, look, there is like a 3-second delay, so I will be the first to hear it, and then everyone else.
So we saw that in almost 60 assemblies, most of the people are going for two-state solution. Even settlers, unbelievable. When you sit on the negotiation table, most of them are for two-state solution. However, and this is a however, two-state solution is a broad concept that means different things to different people. Those settlers who speak about two-state solution is different than your vision. We are going to speak about 3 alternative two-state solutions. And we are going to have 3 teams. Each team is going to negotiate agreement of this kind of the 3. The first, we are going to call it separation. You have 2 separate states. The second, this is one radical. The third one, which is another radical, we call it partnership. 2-state solution with joint mechanism or joint institution and joint systems to keep and build the peace. The second one, which is between the extreme, we call it 2 cooperative states. Different things that we need to cooperate. We are going to negotiate it for 1 year with international conference, with public input. We are designing platform that people can participate. In the end of the year, we're going to present 3 agreements, and hopefully people can vote online on the most preferred agreement. And we're going to propose a proposal for Gaza. Because right now, the people who speak about Gaza speak about the Egyptian plan, which is just the beginning of the negotiation. It's a basis for negotiation, but this is not, it's many problems that have to be solved. After we are going to have this 3 agreements, we ask the people to vote, and we choose one plan. And the one plan, we are going to have another 1 year of project. When we speak, we're going to speak about 3 components of peace: peacemaking, peace building, and peacekeeping. Because reach an agreement without political, civilian, and militaristic mechanism to keep the peace, you're going to have the 7th of October again. So we are going to speak about, we are going to have 3 groups. Again, hopefully in 1 year, we're going to propose a conclusive peace pact, and we'll share it. And so this is our next project.
Count me in.
Sure.
So this is actually a question from the audience from Shadow Disc, and I was wondering this as well. He's asking why 2 states strengthens the moderates and weakens the extremists. Like, what's the logic behind that?
Because the Palestinians, this is the logic of the Palestinians, not talking about the Israelis, because the Jani said that it's weakened the extremists. He said that most of the Palestinians are for 2-state solution. When you recognize that the Palestinians are entitled to have their independence, you strengthen the peace camp, those who believe that the Palestinians should have freedom, and weaken those who said that there's no solution to the conflict, and so on and so on, so like Hamas. So by declaring that Palestinians are entitled for their own state, you, according to the Jani, you strengthen the moderates.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think that's something we should work on, strengthening the moderates. I'll tell you what doesn't strengthen the moderates: war and bloodshed. Certainly not that.
Completely agree with you.
Yeah. We're going to open it up to questions. I have one question, and I hope your answer is not contrary to what I've been promoting, because then I'm going to need to, we won't get into an argument here, but then I'll need to, people will use this against me for sure if we disagree here. So you've studied both North Ireland and South Africa. In both those instances, you had the IRA and the ANC. They were both far more extreme when they were fighting, when they were engaged in resistance. They both engaged in violence, and then they made major concessions and became legitimate governments. Can you see Hamas going through a similar process?
I don't think so. I don't see. This is, first of all, this is not a question to ask me, because I'm not expert to Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
When I read the agenda of Hamas, when I see the agenda of Hamas, I don't see them, how they can participate in this. But again, maybe Hamas is not one voice. So you have to ask experts to Hamas and ask Palestinians experts.
Okay.
Now, in Northern Ireland, the IRA, the political party of the IRA that associated was Sinn Féin. And the British refused that Sinn Féin will be part of the all-party talks, because the IRA didn't give up their weapon. And the IRA wanted very much to be part of the Sinn Féin, but be part of the talks. But of course, violence changed everything. When violence started, the British said, okay, so let them agree to ceasefire, and then Sinn Féin can come in. About Hamas, I don't.
So you're saying,
I don't see this, but again, this is not a question to me.
right? Okay, because I'm happy that you weren't confident in your no, because I'm actually pretty confident that there is a way to achieve it. I don't pretend to know exactly how to achieve it, but just based on some shift we've seen in them, even the past few decades, until October 7th, I think was certainly a step in the wrong direction. But we've seen them attempting to gain international legitimacy and warm up to two states. But also because what you said, Hamas is not one person. Their people change. So it seems like I would be interested if somebody feels very strongly that it's a no. I would want to understand from them why they believe Hamas is fundamentally different from the ANC and from the IRA. And there's other examples throughout history, but yeah, because I'll tell you my thought. I don't think we're going to defeat them militarily, and I don't want us to maintain the status quo because of this notion that there's no way to have peace with them, right? If we can't defeat them militarily, and the status quo is unsustainable, well, then we need to start to recognize other alternatives. So not only do I believe this to be true, but I very much hope it's true because it does give us a viable path forward. That's how I look at it. Cool. So we have some questions coming in. What we're gonna do now, Sapir, I'm gonna share my screen and you're gonna see our community. Let's think. Okay, I need to remove the screen share here. Ready? Boom. Okay. This is the private viewership that's not on YouTube or Twitter. Now, people can hop on stage if they want and ask questions with their voice, or they could write a question out. We have a question from Nomad. Nomad says, I've believed in the two-state solution most of my life, but it seems the settlers might have made it impossible. What is the solution for the problem with settlers that doesn't leave the Palestinian state a bunch of isolated Bantustans? Now, Sapir, this could be your personal opinion as well as what has been spoken of in the negotiations.
Yeah, usually, of course, the settlement is a big headache for those who support two-state solution. Usually, there's two options. In the framework of the three options, so I'll speak about two options. One of them is okay. Forget the two options. Let's go back. If you look at the conventional wisdom is that the major settlement blocks, Gush Etzion, Ma'ale Adumim, and Ariel, or at least part of Ariel, are going to be annexated to Israel. And Israel will grant the Palestinians the same amount of land in quality and quantity in different places. The rest of the settlers, the small settlements that inside the West Bank, will have two options: or to evacuate, or to stay as residents of the Palestinian society and citizens of Israel. So this is usually the conventional wisdom. I think this problem have to be seriously considered, because even I don't agree with the settlers, perhaps their safety have to be guaranteed. And even if they stay in the Palestinian societies, there are many problems who are going to solve, for example, neighbor disputes. Who are going to solve Palestinian family disputes? If the state of emergency, they call the Palestinian police. Perhaps yes, but this is something that have to be really considered.
So that generally it's spoken of no need to do mass uprooting people from their homes. They would get to stay and they would need to abide by Palestinian law as residents. But
This
then
is
it's
one of the solutions. Yes, one of the solutions.
and then it's also just a question of what are the institutions that are protecting those people or ensuring their security.
Exactly.
And how do okay. Cool. Let's see what else we have. Does anybody want to hop on? So in the meantime, Sapir, what you're also working on some kind of an AI negotiation solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share a little bit about what that is?
Speaking about the initiative is called NegoFlict, negotiation and conflict. And now someone told me that we have to change the name.
You know,
We,
I actually had a similar. I was thinking the same thing. There's something potentially controversial about that name.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we led a lot of solution-focused negotiations, and we got a lot of experience. So our idea was that we should do something with all this knowledge and to apply to different fields, such as family disputes, such as business disputes. So I was sitting in a coffee shop, and next to me, there was, with a friend, and next to us, there was a family, a mother and two of her daughter. So I used the Israeli chutzpah and asked them if their family, if they have a problem in their family. So just my daughter is coming, and so yes.
She could join the stream. That's fine.
Yeah,
We talk about such challenging topics. It eases the tension a little bit, you know.
yeah. You can say hello, Mia. Anyway, so ask them if they have problem in the family. And told me sure. And the problem was that the daughter, who is a teenager, 70 years old, want to spend out with her friends late at night. And her mother is worried she don't agree to this. And they cannot talk to each other because whenever they start to talk, they start shouting. So I suggested to them, let's open a WhatsApp group. I'm going to mediate. I'm going to give you rules. And let's try to solve it. So they agree. We open a WhatsApp group. I gave them two rules: not to demean each other, and not to start blaming. I did to you, you did to me, and this and this and this. And everyone has to write no more than 3 sentences. And I gave them 5 interactions to reach agreement. Interaction is mean the mother speak, the daughter. The mother speak, the daughter. We did 5 interactions, and they couldn't reach agreement. 2 hours later, I got another WhatsApp message, and they asked to continue. So I gave them another 3 interaction, and we reach agreement. And it was very interesting. 2 lessons from this. First of all, there are negotiated problems or there are not negotiated problems. Beliefs and feelings are not negotiable. I cannot negotiate Adar with you if there's God or not God. And I told you, Adar, you believe 80% in God, I will believe 40% in God. It's not going to work.
Right.
So when the mother and her daughter start arguing if the daughter is mature enough or not mature enough, it's not negotiable. The mother said, you're not mature enough, and the daughter said, I'm mature enough, and then it's collapsing. So you have to change the question. Instead of start to debate if she's mature or not mature, you can ask the question, what is the hour that the daughter can come on that address the needs of the fear of her mother and the need of her daughter to spend time with her friends? And one of the most interesting things is that in most negotiations, there's a game changer that you have to identify it. And if you identify it, you solve the negotiation. And the game changer here was that the girl didn't want, the young lady didn't want to spend time so late with her friends. She wanted to come early home. But she don't have anyone to escort her because people want to stay, their friends want to stay up late. So the problem is security is not the hour. They were fighting about something that they agree because she wants to go back home at 12 o'clock. So you solve the problem quite easy. She will go back home. Her mother will ask for get taxi or Uber, and she will go back home at 12 o'clock. After we did this experiment, we built a platform for negotiation online. There's moderator, and people negotiate online. Now, from our experience, the AI, and you can ask ChatGPT if I'm wrong, cannot moderate negotiations. But by recommendation system, it can make human mediator super mediator. So it can help him by identifying, sending suggestions. There are barriers for negotiation that appear in almost every negotiation, every type of negotiation. And this is what we are building. My students led hundreds of negotiation, of solution-focused negotiation. And it's amazing. I published a book, Solution-Focused Negotiation for Family Disputes to Politics, which described many of these kind of negotiations. And now I'm writing a book, Solution-Focused Negotiation, Barriers and Game Changers. And we are developing the platform. Hopefully soon it will be available to everyone. It's amazing.
Okay, cool. When's that meant to come out?
I don't know yet. If someone have a problem and wants to do it, he can contact me and we'll help him.
Awesome. Cool. Let's see if there's any more questions. If not, we could start to wrap this up. I think we're good. So there's going to be probably a few thousand people who see this conversation on the various platforms. If they want to somehow be involved or support, what's the best way for them to do that?
First, they can send me an email.
We could add your email in the description of this video.
Sure. Or they could go to the website Minds of Peace.
Okay, we're gonna post the link for that as well. Cool.
mindsofpeace.org. And if you don't remember just send in an email, we'll read it. In mindsofpeace.org, you can read about our activity and send us an email. It's not a problem.
Amazing.
And who wants to really contribute and be involved, my name is Sapir Handelman. You can find me in LinkedIn. It's easy to get in touch with me. It's not with me, the whole operation here.
I dropped a link both places so people can find that. Also, Andrew has a question, so we're going to hear from Andrew now.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Sapir. Yes, I have a question. I see that you've been publishing, right, in academic journals, right, and by yourself for a very long time, right? Can you please discuss the state kind of research, right, and what is your kind of what do you think is your major contribution to the field, right? That's the first part, and the second part, I'm interested in this kind of this notion of people-to-people diplomacy, right? That you discussed your initiative, right, or earlier initiative, right? Minds of Peace, right? stuff. Do you see it just as an experiment, right? That shows that people can negotiate, and they don't necessarily the leaders don't necessarily reflect the ability of conflicting kind of communities to negotiate, or do you see it as a kind of viable part of the kind of real peace process, that it could be consequential? Thank you.
Okay, I'll answer the first question is a little embarrassing. You're asking my contribution, but I won't be shy, and I'll talk about two of my main contributions. I'm scholar of peace and conflict studies. And in peace of conflict studies, there's two competitive paradigms. Realism, which is starting international relations, and pluralism. In realism, they speak about states and bargaining. This is the kind of negotiation. In peace and conflict study, pluralism speak about political elite and the basic needs and fear of the opposing sides. Now, in realism, you speak about official negotiation. In pluralism, you speak about political elite who can identify the fear and needs of the public, of the people and the states and everything. In both paradigms, the missing components is the involvement of the people. And I believe it's not realism against pluralism, but it's realism and pluralism. And I suggested the third paradigm that's called contractualism. That if realists speak about the major players in international relations as states, and pluralism speak about groups within states, in contractualism, we speak about two major players, the leaders and the people. And the question is how to involve both of them. So this is one contribution. And the second one, I developed the concept of solution-focused negotiation, which is a negotiation in limited time frame when the opposing sides are trying to reach a practical and enforceable agreements. This is two of my main contributions, and I have others because I wrote about manipulation and wrote in different fields. So this is the two mains in peace and conflict studies. Now, about our initiative about people-to-people diplomacy. The idea when I came with the idea, we started to do experiments. We call it the Minds of Peace experiments. And as you said, we try to show that when you take people from all the political spectrum, they can reach agreement. We did it in major universities around the United States and Canada. I was abroad for some time, I wasn't in Israel. And then when I came back, we started to do it in Israel. But then it's involved to activism. You stop doing it in conference hall, as Adar described. We did it in central public places inside Israel and inside the West Bank. This is not something easy to organize. And then we did mass congresses. So we took the experiment and the lessons and brought it to activism. We didn't succeed to create change, at least yet, but we saw that something substantial can help. And if we'll succeed to establish a maybe global movement by doing this in different places around the world and building maybe centers for conflict resolution, and then maybe one day we can establish this kind of major Congress in Israel and Palestine, we did our job. So it's not just experiment, this is a real peacemaking activism. I hope I answer your questions.
Thank you so much. Can I have can I have another question? Or?
Yeah, sure. We have a few minutes left, so this will be the final question.
Thank you. Please tell me, right, if you think I'm wrong, right? But my kind of idea of how kind of consequential negotiation process kind of arises in large-scale political conflict, right? Not in kind of not in family dynamics or things like that, but in political conflict, is that kind of through the process of kind of political struggle, organized political entities reach some sort of kind of state that induces them kind of to think about negotiating first, then organizing negotiations, and most of kind of consequential work of negotiating, right, is done by this kind of organized political actors, like states, parties, right, insurgencies, and their representatives, right? And I don't really, when I think about South Africa, right, which you reference, or Ireland, I think about these processes, right, like that, and nothing kind of comes to mind in terms of this kind of people-to-people stuff. So am I completely wrong here? And there was kind of substantial people-to-people stuff there, or is this kind of the new experimental paradigm you kind of you're proposing that we should implement, and maybe it works, right, in the future? Thanks.
Andrew, you're completely right. In both places, in South Africa and Northern Ireland, it was, when you speak about the all-party talk or the multi-party talk, there were professional politicians. The political parties send representatives and they negotiate, and this creates a momentum and involve the public. Since we don't have in Israel and Palestine sometimes leaders that can do something like this, we thought about starting it from the grassroots, that we are going to do it. Hopefully a political leader will come and take our ideas and maybe establish this kind of multi-party talks or something like this. As you said, I don't have any example in history that something like this grew up from people to people. Our idea was at the beginning that we start with small assemblies, then we grow it until we have a major Congress when leaders are opening it. But reality is it's stronger. You have the COVID, it stopped it. Then you have 7th of October. So one thing that we can say, maybe we can be an inspiration to this kind of visionary leaders that can do it, if we will not succeed to do it by yourself, by people-to-people diplomacy. However, if you look at both cases, in South Africa and Northern Ireland, the civil society, those non-profit organizations, contributed a lot. And I'll give you 2 examples. In South Africa, there was ongoing violence all over. So the civil society, the non-profit organization, came with an initiative it called the Peace Accord. And the Peace Accord was to establish Center for Conflict Resolutions on the community level, on the regional level, and on the state level. And these centers for conflict resolution, which was supported by the political parties, didn't solve the conflict, but it helped and didn't stop violence, but it helped South Africa from collapsing into a civil war and gave a framework for the political parties to negotiate. In Northern Ireland, you have something that's called the Yes Campaign. When the political parties were occupied in the negotiations, the civil society's organization understood that someone have to market the agreement because there was supposed to be a referendum. So, and they were afraid that the political parties are so occupied in the negotiation, they don't have time and the efforts to market it. So they established the Yes campaign, and the Yes campaign helped to market the agreement that the politicians reached. So the civil societies have a lot to organize. To sum up, I don't have any example that this kind of major congress or this kind of movement came from the grassroots level. Hopefully, it will emerge in Israel and Palestine, but I don't know how to get there.
Thank you, Andrew.
That's right.
Sapir, do you have time for one more question?
Sure.
Cool. We're going to bring Justin on. Justin, the floor is yours. Thank you, Andrew.
Hello, Dr. Sapir. Welcome to Head On. So I want to go back to what you were talking about with the psychology and stuff of people when they approach the two-state solution. And it's something that was touched on, how the approach to two-state solution is very different for both. I'm a Palestinian, and how I see a two-state solution and how an Israeli see a two-state solution, there's just such a psychological disconnect. Because for Israelis, they see a two-state solution, like we want guarantees, that security, control of things like the border and things like that. Where we're Palestinians, they're concerned about continuing settlements, that they feel that every approach that goes towards a two-state solution, there's an Israeli back deal behind the scene deal to increase settlements, and that by the time we get to a final negotiation, that there's nothing left. There's 150,000 more settlers or 1 million settlers. So it seems that this gap, there's two of them. There's the first gap is, what is a two-state solution? What does it entitle that's both acceptable to Israelis and Palestinians? And why is it that the steps that we've taken toward going to a two-state solution has been so discredited because Palestinians see it as that it's Israel buying time to seize more land, to build more settlements? How do we bridge this gap? It's a gap that I've been very frustrated as somebody who's been supportive of a two-state solution for 2 decades now, almost three. And yet I'm finding that it's hard for me to convince Palestinians to get on board. And it's hard for me because Palestinians, when you ask them about a two-state solution, they don't reject it because they say that it's a stupid idea. They reject it because they say that it's not going to work because the Israelis don't want it to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is the tragic of the conflict. Because if you talk to Israelis on the street, they will tell you, we are supportive for two-state solution, but it's not going to work also. Because especially the right wing in Israel believe that, I talk to Israel as an Israeli, then I speak about the Palestinians, okay? The Israelis, the right wing Israelis said that if there's going to be two-state solution, the Palestinian state is going to be weak. The institutions are not going to function, and it's going to collapse. And then you're going to have all the radical elements like ISIS and Hamas on the Israeli border. So this is the idea of conflict management, that you cannot resolve it. By the way, the left said the opposite, that if there's not going to be two-state solution, if there's not going to be two states, Israel is going to lose the Jewish state demographically, we are going to collapse morally, and in the end of the day, the world is going to impose a solution that we don't like. Okay, and they'll fight. At least this was before the 7th of October. I'm saying, first of all, let's think about what is the meaning of two-state solution. And understand in the Palestinians, the fear that Israel talk, and in the end you see settlements. And since I'm not the Prime Minister of Israel at this moment, I cannot change it. However, when the people are coming to the negotiation table on both sides and speaking and considering options, then they all the time reach two-state solution. Now, I don't know how to implement it. And this is the reason we have this kind of project. If you want to convince them that it's possible, bring them to our negotiation. let them to negotiate in the Israelis and look in the face and understand the fear and needs of both sides. This is the only way to do it. And the only way to do it is that the Palestinians will talk to Israelis to see that they are human beings, that they want their own state, and the Israelis will talk to Palestinians and to see that, you know, we want to live in peace. And perhaps we should change terms. Instead of talking about security for Israel and security to Palestine, we should add the notion of collective security, how we can guarantee security for both sides. And then Palestinians will see that some of the Israelis think that certain Israeli initiatives is against our interests. And to conclude, I will say that in both cases, in cases of intractable conflict, there's things that called the paradox of stalemate. I talked about it in my book. On the one hand, people on both sides believe the situation cannot continue like this. It's catastrophe and it's violence and no one wants it. On the other hand, they're stuck because they said, okay, we don't want it and maybe two-state solution, but they're not human beings. I cannot talk with them. So again, on the one hand, you can say, I cannot continue like this. I want my independence. I want my own state. And I'm afraid from a catastrophe. On the other hand, but he's not partner to peace. I cannot talk to him. And this paradox appears in almost every intractable conflict. In the cases that I studied, this paradox was solved when leadership changed, when came visionary leadership and changed the rules of the game. And perhaps our goal is to create the foundation that such visionary leaders on both sides will emerge on the stage of politics. And if you look at the American Revolution, the Civil Rights Revolution, Martin Luther King was not emerged on a vacuum. There was a political atmosphere that helped to a visionary leader that his name was Martin Luther King to emerge. And this is something that we should create and do together.
Amen. That's an excellent note to end it on. I actually really like the collective security part. I've been thinking a little bit about, just today I was thinking about the framing, how for us security is important. For Palestinians, it's a sense of justice, it's equality, it's freedom of movement. But people will often say, what do you mean? Palestinians also care about security. And I was trying to think how to reconcile that. And I think the challenge is the way Israelis see it, it's like we could find a solution to the conflict, but that doesn't guarantee that we will be safe. I don't think we have the same concern that if there's actually a solution, that Palestinians won't be safe. They just might not have their full rights. So, and that's not super compelling the way I just framed it. But collective security, I think, is the solution. It's not one security over the other. It's we should find a system that secures both people. So, amazing. Sapir, thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to do this again sometime, so we'll stay in touch. And let me know about the upcoming negotiations and how I could support you guys.
Sure.
And be involved.
Everyone who can support us is invited to keep in touch.
Amazing. And I have put I've shared Sapir's email and the link to Minds of Peace if you want to get in touch. And I'll also be posting about the next stuff going on and how to get in touch. So with that, thank you so much, Sapir.
Thank you very much.
Talk soon. Okay, cool. So I think I'll probably stream for another 15 or so minutes, and then we're going to wrap it up. Just want to add the links, the website link and the email. Sunny FX says, excellent conversation. I agree. I hope people got a lot out of that. I definitely, it sharpened some things for me as well. We have K. Susie is asking, where are you going to put a Palestinian state? The settlements have fragmented the West Bank. Well, yeah, there's different solutions, but many would say that the two main solutions is, one, you just need to uproot the settlers. They'd need to come to Israel proper. The other is that they would just stay in the Palestinian state and they'd be residents of the Palestinian state, but would have citizenship in Israel. And they would just need to abide by Palestinian law. So I think I think that's a better solution. Personally, it's better to not uproot people if you don't have to. But yeah, so there's different ways to go about it. Are we gonna get rid of this? Cool. Also, head on crew. Let me know where you guys want to take this. We could bring it over to the chill room. Georgie's saying, smart guy, shame he didn't go more into his research. You should have asked. You know, that was the Q&A part. But we could bring him back. We could bring him back anytime and go do a deep dive on his research. Because yeah, he's been living this for decades. You know, he's been living this for decades. Pizza Slice, did you raise your hand, or are you no longer raising your hand? I just realized there was something I wanted to ask him. There were two good stories. They on two occasions got chased out of. They did a negotiation in Ramallah and they had to leave because people were throwing stones at them, and they were doing it in Jerusalem. One time it was like extremist Palestinians in Ramallah, and then in Jerusalem it was extremist Jews who were also upset at what they were doing. But we'll get him to tell that story next time. Did I reach out to Seth Frantzman for a military strategy interview? No, not yet, but let me write a note about this. We will get him on because he does have a very interesting perspective. And he seems like an honest man, so. Okay, cool. You guys want to see the I could try to find it. It's somewhere. The speech I gave at the negotiation in Rabin Square. Oh man, it was so long ago. I hope I don't cringe at what I said there. Let's see. Let's see if I could find it. Oh wow, this is a blast from the past. Wow, okay. I don't know where it is. Oh, I know. Okay. I think I know where it is. Sunny's asking, what's the name of that one researcher who has done research on how to create two states with minimal dismantlement of the settlements in the West Bank? I'm not sure, but you should, I'm going to screenshot that question and ask ChatGPT. Let's see. Let's see if I could find that video. These are the early days of, oh yeah, I found it, okay. 8 years ago, so how old was I, 27? Oh, you could see Sapir there. Okay, cool. I want to share this for Discord as well, so we got to do a double screen share. Wait, what? Oh, okay, maybe like this.
وعاصمتها القدس الشريف. شكرا لكم جميعا ותודה רבה לכל הישראלים שבאו ודורכים והצטרפו והשתתפו והרבה תודה לכולם. שוקרא לכם.
מילה אחרונה לדור הצעיר, להדר.
Oh, my mom's there. I didn't even remember. Shalom, salam, hello. I'm going to do this in English so those who didn't understand what was said till now can understand. Thank you all so much for coming today. You may not realize this, but together we are making history. This is only just the beginning. We're going to keep growing these negotiations. We're going to grow it until hundreds of thousands, even millions of Israelis and Palestinians are rallied side by side behind a unified resolution. This may seem like a distant dream, but it's not. When the people of Israel and Palestine unite, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. When the people of Israel and Palestine unite, peace will reign upon this beautiful land. Thank you all so much. This is only just beginning. We cannot do it without you. And thank you to Sapir, Ibrahim, and all the other organizers for the amazing work you guys all. That did not make me cringe. That actually was a little emotional. Cool. Different energy from the live streams, huh, guys? Well, we didn't make history, so I was wrong, but trying to inspire a crowd, you know? Nikia says the start of my presidential journey. Shadow Dishka, you're kinda charismatic, not gonna lie. Just kinda? Okay, I'll take it. It's a very different energy from the live streams. I don't really have opportunities to make such speeches, but you know, I guess we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. Yeah, Shaul Arieli, that's what ChatGPT said, and that's what Shachar said. So actually, I had Shaul Arieli's number back in the day. Hold on. Do I still have his number? Oh yeah, I do. Right? Is this the guy? Yeah. Should I text him right now? What should I tell him? Should we bring him on? Would you guys like to hear from Shaul? Well, if we get a few yeses from the various chats, we'll message him. Shadow, you're asking who was the Sapir? So Sapir was the guy we just spoke to. So you saw him there in the background of when I was speaking. Yeah. Levy, what's up, man? We're getting yes that we should message Shaul, so I'll message him. But it's late. He lives in Israel, it's rude to message him at this hour. Although, if there's any place you could message someone at an hour like this, I guess it's here. 9:20. I'll wait till tomorrow just to play it safe. But okay, let me write a note. Show Levy. Let's get him on.
Yeah.
Levy, what's up? By the way, is it Levy or Levy?
Levy, but Levy is good.
But it's Levy.
Yeah, sort of.
What's your preference?
I really don't.
You don't have a preference?
Like when I grew, not really. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yesterday in the stream, did we discuss at all what's it called, the recognition of Palestine by France and Britain?
Yes. Yeah. At the beginning, I touched on it a little bit, and then I woke up to seeing that Malta and a few more countries are considering as well.
Australia, Canada. Yeah. Do you think it's significant? Like, besides for isolating Israel, do you think it will make a difference on the ground?
I mean, I could see it going both ways. I could see Israel being upset by it and then annexing land, but I like to think that the more international recognition, primarily by, everyone's recognized Palestine except for the West, right? The West has held out, but now they're no longer holding out. I think it makes it even more undeniable now that Palestine exists. My guess would be this is going to be ultimately good to getting us to where we need to get to. And I also think this is going to help Netanyahu be seen as a failure in Israeli society. So I think it's good for that reason as well. He says how he changed the Middle East. He refuses to take responsibility for anything that ever went wrong. October 7th was the Shin Bet, but all the success since October 7th, he just takes full credit for. But this is going to be very hard for him to spin, I mean, he'll still find a way to spin it, but I think this will make him look bad. And yeah, I think when you have the legitimacy of the world, it's much harder to deny. So while I could see it going both ways, my sense is that this will be good.
Like in sense of security, like every time the Israeli military will have a raid in Jenin or Nablus or whatever, like every time they will have to like excuse themselves in front of Britain or France or like other countries. They'll like say like they'll like admonish them for it, and I don't know how long that can be, how sustainable that is, until when those countries will tell them either we cut off diplomatic and financial relationships, or you behave according to the law, international law.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is significant.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you on that. And so this is a question, and then Benny, we'll give it over to you next. But and Levy, feel free to hang around. We could get a little panel going. But Abstract Law saying, what do you think of Arab states calling Hamas to disarm? So I think that's also a positive development. If there could be enough pressure that somehow leads Hamas to step down and disarm, I think that's a great win. What I would say is it's possible that what will ultimately convince them, and I don't know if Israel would ever do this, but if Israel commits to recognizing a Palestinian state under the condition that Hamas steps down and disarms, I think that would compel them. Like that would push them over, because asking them to step down without getting a victory for Palestine is much less compelling. And they might still step down, but I think the chance is far less likely. So if we really care about getting Hamas to step down, then Israel should say, well, we're happy to recognize a Palestinian state, but it can't be with Hamas in charge. So step down, and we'll work with the PA to develop a state. I don't see Netanyahu doing.
But it's never going to happen on the government.
Yeah, no, right. I don't see Netanyahu doing that. Yeah, I guess it's just a hypothetical, right? Because Netanyahu wouldn't do that. But
and I think another thing about the international recognition is that this will, like centrists like Yair Lapid, like until now, who would say like the goal is still a two-state solution, but right now it's not the time. And now, if the whole world is recognizing, he will have to reconsider that position, and he will have to go. I think like the Democratic, they are saying like we are ready right now for a Palestinian state, but now even the centrists will have to go to that position, because if not, there'll be international pride.
Right. So you're saying the recognition from the whole West is going to pressure Israeli leadership to go back to the two-state, go
Yes.
back to two states.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least the centrist ones.
Yeah. I mean, Netanyahu can't stay in power currently while moving towards two states, right? He's held hostage by Smotrich and Ben Gvir, so he doesn't have much. He can't move anywhere left of where he currently is. So we might need to wait, unfortunately, until he's gone, and hopefully that's sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think this is positive. I am still not convinced Hamas is going to, like we're talking about on the topic of Hamas. I'm not convinced that Arab states calling them to disarm is going to make the difference. Although, no, they didn't agree to disarm. They agreed to step down from governance. So they said they will not disarm, but they won't run Gaza anymore. Kind of like they want to be like Hezbollah. You know, they don't want to run Gaza. They want to be the military wing. But I don't think Israel's not accepting that. Although I think that's also a step in the right direction, or just again try to negotiate them into a solution, which I'm convinced is possible. But it would be better to negotiate with the less hard line. You know, it's just on both sides, right? Netanyahu is not going to be the prime minister to negotiate a peace solution, or he likely won't, and it likely won't be with Hamas. It'll be much easier with moderates negotiating. But there's kind of like a catch-22, right? Because the longer you're in conflict, the weaker moderates get, right? Extremists thrive from conflict, and then they're not the best equipped to negotiate a solution. So it's challenging. Benny, what's on your mind?
I wanted to touch on that issue of the recognition of the state of Palestine in the West. I view it more as a symptom of something that's going on, and that has kind of a mass psychology effect. When a lot of people have around the world, you know, when there's a huge amount of people that see this as happening and see this as desirable, that there's kind of a way that these things tend to happen. You know, if you think of the state of Israel, I think the Holocaust with all its horrors created a mass agreement around the world, even though there were countries that opposed it, but they could. When there's a wave like this, it's very hard to stop. It's just like it just happens. Like, you know, enough people want something to happen, it happens. And I think that's what's driving these recognitions. And I think, you know, these recognitions are a symptom of what's actually happening now in the world. And I don't think there's anything, you know, if it's strong enough, there's nothing that Israel or even the United States government can do to stop it.
Yeah. And, you know, it is possible that the next Democratic president might also then, I don't know, maybe more likely than Trump, but it's possible that the second you get a Democrat in office, or not the second, but the next Democrat in office is going to be far more likely to also recognize a Palestinian state. Like if you have maybe an Obama,
I don't think
an Obama-like
figure.
figure.
I think it's even, I might be delusional, but I think it's possible that at a certain point Trump will recognize it.
He's enough of a wild card.
He's not ideological. If he can see, you know, a solution that creates that there's some kind of trophy for him, he's all about himself, right? If he sees this, if he can push it to the extent that it'll make him, I don't know, win a Nobel Peace Prize, maybe, but, you know, that he can take credit for it. He loves to make peace, you know. He probably thinks at this point that it wouldn't work, so he's not going to push it because it'll be a failure. But I think if he feels that there's enough momentum with it, he loves riding the wave and taking all the credit for it, and, you know.
Right. Although
if that's the price, then, you know.
But my sense is that while he is a wild card, you don't know what he's going to do. My sense is that he would play it safe and propose a solution like he did in his first term, and the recognition of the Palestinian state would come once the solution is fully agreed upon by both sides, not first, right? Because yeah.
No, I just want to say, like, if he's now getting frustrated with Putin, he's been getting frustrated with Netanyahu.
Right.
And here the question is indeed, if there will be new elections, there will be a new prime minister in Israel, and they will be within a negotiation. Trump doesn't think he's being taken for a fool. Then he might just say we depend on the outcome of the negotiation. But if Netanyahu is staying and he's just going to block any solution, he might just say that now it's time to recognize it, just like the Europeans.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I could see that happening. I don't know. I wouldn't know what to put the likelihood at, but that'd be the curveball of the century, huh? And he's a man of curveballs, so I guess it's possible. It would be so interesting to see his there's a part of the MAGA movement is certainly not pro-Israel, but there's the MAGA Zionists, and that's going to be an interesting meltdown if something like that ever happens. Kasusi says, no Israeli PM, left or right, will ever agree to a Palestinian state. During Oslo, Rabin stood in the Knesset and vowed there would never be a Palestinian state. So I don't think that's true, Kasusi. I mean, Rabin was killed for attempting a Palestinian state. And then Ehud Barak ran on the platform of establishing a Palestinian state. And he won on that platform. Eventually, over time, Israelis did lose hope, and it became kind of this naive dream that it just became something no longer tenable that we're not going to attempt for because we tried and it failed. But there was a time where most Israelis, overwhelmingly Israelis, were supportive of it, and prime ministers won running on that platform. So I don't think that's true. And it's not enough to look at one quote from one politician in Knesset. It reminds me, a lot of people say Arafat would never agree to a Palestinian state because he also had a quote when, I think it was in South Africa, he made a speech and said, we'll never stop resisting against Israel no matter what. People use that quote as a sign that he would never agree to two states. People say shit. Politicians say shit, right? Often that shit's not true. Or often they're saying it for some strategic reason at a given point in time, but either they don't mean it or their opinion can change. We have many examples of this. So I wouldn't be so absolutist in this idea that no Israeli prime minister will ever agree to a Palestinian state. I do think that it will likely, at this point, with how radicalized the Israeli population is, it's not going to come from within. It's going to require external pressure, kind of like what Levy was talking about. Now Israel's going to be pressured to do it. So a more moderate prime minister might take those steps. But I think it's certainly possible.
It definitely would be much easier for Bibi to pass it through Israeli society if he does switch sides, which doesn't seem very likely right now, but in a different context, in a different international context, if he would be the one to have to pass it through, it would be much easier from him than Yair Golan or Yair Lapid or anybody like that.
I don't know. I think if he goes that way, the whole right will desert him, and the left will not. They won't accept it. So I don't see a path for Bibi. But
I don't know. Remember Begin?
But was
Yeah,
was
but that was-
Begin as hated as Bibi? Like Bibi, I feel it's this like visceral hate that there's nothing he could do. There's some segment of the Israeli population, and it might be even half, that just no matter what he does, he's done so.
You're too young, Adar. You don't remember Begin. I'm sorry, but
that's
in
true,
the
I am.
left, Begin was as hated as Bibi.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God. It was in 1977 when he got elected. The left was terrified. It was shocked. It was like how the country's gone down the drain. That's it. That's the end of the country. This was and he spewed hate. They don't talk about it so much these days, but Begin spewed hate to the left, to labor, to the kibbutzim, to the, he was scary. And then he became, then when he was up there, he became a lot more, mamlachti, how do you say that in English?
Presidential?
Yeah, well, and he did have his principles. He wasn't like Bibi in that sense. He had a conscience, and he had ideals that were more, moral ideals. It came out, he was prime minister. Eventually, he couldn't stay prime minister for very long because it killed him from the inside. But before, in the elections in 1977, and even more than that in 1981, he was, oh my God, it was brutal.
Okay, good to know. But could you really see the left supporting Bibi?
I'm a leftist. You're a leftist. If Bibi says we need a Palestinian state, only I can do it, vote for me. Because if it's not me, then it won't happen. You're going to have a civil war. If you won't have it. I would consider voting for him. Wouldn't you? If he's running on that.
Yeah.
As much as you hate him.
Well, if it seemed like the alternative to him would be somebody much worse, then yeah. Like if it was between him and a candidate who was not committing to two states, yeah, in that sense, sure. Yeah, okay.
I hate him, and I think he's terrible, and I everything. We're on the same page. Most of the people here are on the same page. But for peace, then we'll settle it out. After we have peace, we can kick them out and make a normal country. But
right.
But Benny, will you trust him if you're on such a platform?
Yeah, that's what Shachar is saying as well.
Would I trust him? I mean, if my option is somebody who can't do it at all? I don't know. I mean, obviously I would be very suspicious. But if that's
what would be not being able to do
that the world is moving in that direction. That's kind of like where things are going, and he's in a corner. It's not like he's doing it because he's pretending to be like a socialist leftist, but because that's kind of like the direction the stream is dragging. The flow is dragging everything. It's not a matter of even testing things. Like, he has no choice. But if we have no choice, then he's the guy that can do it. Because again, somebody from the left, there'll be a civil war here.
Okay.
It needs to be. It needs to be probably somebody from the center. The left isn't relevant. They're just not relevant. Like Yair Golan. He might be the most relevant, and he's actually something I think Israelis would ultimately trust because he's a military guy. He's not what they perceive as some like weakling lefty. He got up and fought on October 7th. He's considered to many a national hero. So someone like that, I think, can do it, but he's not even close to being relevant for that, right? So. Although there's gonna be a lot of changes very soon, right? We're gonna see how, when the dust settles from all this recognition, what that looks like. The dust will settle from Gaza. We still don't know how that's gonna end, and then we'll see where the country's at then. But there's definitely big. It seems like there's big change coming, or maybe I don't want to say big change, but big events that can lead to big change.
Hopefully for the best.
Inshallah. It's funny how I'll sometimes say inshallah, but I'll never say God willing or Bezrat Hashem. It's there's something interesting about that. Because both God willing and Bezrat Hashem, to me, it has a very religious connotation, but inshallah is just me being a cultured individual, you know? So I guess there's some bias, some internal thing going on there that I feel more comfortable with one and not the other.
It's like curse words that you only say in other languages and not in your own.
Like what's an example?
This is on the other, on the other side. But when the meaning isn't as deep, doesn't have that much of a connotation to you.
Right, exactly. It's the connotation. Yeah. But I wonder if when Arab speakers hear me say that, do they perceive me as a religious individual? Justin, we have Justin here. If I say inshallah, does that is that perceived as me being religious? Like, would that be equivalent to saying God willing or Bezrat Hashem? Shachar, you're saying it's not the same? Yeah, okay. So actually, maybe I actually tweeted something today that I think is an interesting point worth bringing up. So I went to a protest in Sakhnin the other day. It's a Palestinian town in the Lower Galilee. It's in Israel proper, but people there overwhelmingly identify as Palestinian. Palestinian citizens of Israel, Palestinian Israeli, but their Palestinian identity is very present, as opposed to a place like Abu Ghosh, for example. And it was the first protest I've been to since I've been back as of the past 4 months, and it was primarily Palestinian citizens of Israel. I've never been to a protest that's primarily Palestinian. The ones in Tel Aviv are overwhelmingly Jewish. This was probably 80% Palestinian, and it was quite inspiring. Just to see a form of peaceful, peaceful collective resistance, right? Well over 1,000 Palestinians rallying in an entirely peaceful protest. When Palestinians engage in violent resistance, that's all over the news. You hear about it, but this is yet another example of a very a large collective engaging in some form of peaceful resistance, and that's not something we're going to hear about on the news, right? When we should. At the end of the protest, I had the purple Standing Together t-shirt, so it's a very noticeable t-shirt. I went into a shop and I just bought a few beverages. And when I came to pay, I saw that the shop owner poured me and my friends passion fruit slushies on the house. I'm like, okay, that's nice. And then I asked him how much, and he said, no, on me. He refused to take money from me. And it got me thinking about something. And, this is something we've spoken about on this channel on multiple occasions, but there's this stigma about Arabs that we often hear. We often hear this from people who have strong opinions on the conflict, but don't really have friends on the other side. They say Arabs only understand the language of force. That's how you need to speak to them, with force. That's the language they understand. But really, they understand the language of honor and respect more than anything. And that man didn't need to give me free drinks, but he saw that I see him and respect him, that I'm there speaking for his rights, and he wanted to show respect back. And it's interesting how false of a notion so many Israelis have about Palestinians and what language they actually speak. Right? They're like, yeah, they speak force. It's like, oh, yes, so checkpoints, what does that do? Does that make them understand us and see us and recognize us? Is killing them, does that work? No. It's not a coherent belief because we've been so forceful towards them, and it hasn't caused them to love us or respect us or accept us. But overwhelmingly, if you show Palestinians respect, you'll receive respect in return. And this isn't unique to Palestinians. This is how human beings function. Human beings want to be seen. They want to be respected. If you respect them, they'll respect you back. That's why I reject these conversations about, oh, it's connected to Islam and this and that. Even if Islam plays a role, even if Jewish nationalism plays a role, whatever you want to point to, we're all more human than we are anything else. All the ideologies that are layered on top of our human psyche play into and interact with our human psyche, but the human psyche that's our primary mode of operating more than anything. And I think we need to start recognizing that about people because it helps us navigate the world and know how to deal with conflicts. Yes, you do need to understand what ideologies these people believe and how that affects their psychology, but no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you're still more human than you are anything else. And I think that's something important to remember.
That's a positive note.
Let's see. Is this Shadow, do you want me to read your comment or is this internal dialogue? It looks like internal dialogue. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I have too much thoughts on that. It's more so about what would get Bibi to say something like that, and could he be believed? Sonny says, thanks to our great conversations. I would like to hear you and Katie Alper in a conversation. Please continue to talk about getting humanitarian aid to the famine in Gaza. You know you already do. Yeah. Yeah, let's get that aid in for sure. Here's the thing. We did learn something with the whole with starvation in Gaza. We understood the limit that the world will put up with, at least when it comes to Israel-Palestine, right? The destruction of Gaza we've seen for 2 years, 20,000 dead children. Yeah, there's been certainly international condemnation from the masses. There's been many allies of Israel that have also condemned Israel, but still, in a sense, enabled it. Certainly the United States. But now the pressure that's coming from starvation seems to be different from anything we've seen in the past. So it seems like that's the limit to what the world will put up with. And again, the reason I say when it comes to Israel and Palestine, because there are other places in the world where no one cares about starvation. Palestinian blood is cheap, right? In the eyes of Westerners, without a doubt. It's much cheaper than European and American blood. It's cheaper than Jewish blood. I'm not talking about individuals, right? I would say most Muslims view Palestinian blood as worth more than Jewish blood. But the states, the institutions, Jewish blood is of higher value. When Jews die, it's more of a story. Palestinian blood's cheap in the West. but it's definitely not as cheap as African blood, right? There's at least a conversation. And again, not enough of a conversation for institutions to step in and do something about it, but there's at least people trying and members of these institutions talking about it. When there's major atrocities in Africa, you know, once in a while you'll hear a thing or two, but there's no talk about it. And people bring this up as a way to deflect from what's happening. This isn't a deflection. This just acknowledging reality. It doesn't mean what Israel is doing is okay. It doesn't mean Westerners shouldn't be outraged about it. They should, but it is true that not all blood is equal in the eyes of the West and in anybody's eyes, right? We all have some hierarchy in terms of like a value hierarchy, which people we care more about. Generally, it's your own people you care the most about, and your enemies you care the least about. But in between your own and your enemy, there's those who are most similar to you, or those who you care about. So Americans and Europeans, they're both white, they're both Christian. There's more similarities in the culture. So you're going to see, more people care more about, Westerners care more about one another than they do the global South, for example. I think Palestinians have gotten the attention of the West because Western Palestinians, along with many Muslim allies, as well as just Western liberals, have over the past few decades built a strong movement. And this is actually something, Justin, you helped me understand this. So shout out to Justin, who's here in the audience. Justin helped me understand this. But decades of building a movement has brought Palestinian struggle to the consciousness of the West, right? So that's why people don't care about Palestinians. The West doesn't care about Palestinians as much as they care about Westerners, but they do care about Palestinians more than they care about other Arabs and other people in the global South. So there has been we see that there's been a clear success of the activism and the movement that's been built, but it has not been enough to stop what Israel has done the past 21 months at this point. So there's something positive there, and there's also it's good but not good enough. And Sonny, yeah, I'm gonna write down also Katie Alper. That'd be cool. I'm down to talk to her. I think she followed me recently, actually. Did she? Let's see, Katie. Maybe not. Oh yeah. Okay, we follow each other. Cool. So she knows who I am. I could DM her. Yeah, I'm down. Cool. I think we'll wrap it up. Oh, Justin, you want to hop on? Cool. So, Justin, we're just going to do a few more minutes, so feel free to share some thoughts, and then we'll move it over.
I was going to say,
we'll move it to the children.
I remember when we talked about why Palestine gets like the traction is there, and I told you that it was because of the decades of like activism and stuff we have. Like the network has already been done. Like we can pick up the phone and get a demonstration of 100, 200, 300 people within an hour. And on the flip side of that, you said that it isn't enough. And I'll tell you why it isn't enough. I feel that if we were being occupied by Iran, I feel if we were being occupied by, like, say, for example, Sudan or not any other country in the world, I think that the fact that Jews have a special status on the oppression card gives them that leverage and their immense influence in the United States as far as like both on, in key positions, but as well as special status in the sense that, these guys went through the Holocaust and all this other stuff, etc. And I tell Palestinians all this, not only do we have the worst allies in the world, we also have the worst enemy, because not in the sense they're the worst people, but in the sense that we were double hit on two sides. Because the card that's been played is that, hey, this is a country that was founded after the terrible, Holocaust and all this other stuff. And then we have this just really backwards oppressive regimes who are allies to us. It's like we're in a really bad corner, to be honest with you, when it comes to that. I really feel that if it was China, if it was another country, there'd be way international support. And it's interesting because most pro-Israeli, pro-Zionist people will actually say the opposite. They'll say, it's because we're Jews, you guys are getting this support. And then I flip it and say, no, it's because you guys are Jews that even with all this support, we can't achieve our goals.
You know, I think that the institutional support is connected to it being a conflict with Jews. We're, you know, disproportionately powerful in many institutions, and we can't deny that that doesn't play a role in it. I mean, I'm sure many would like to deny, and not only deny, they would say that that on its own is an anti-Semitic notion, but I think it's just important to acknowledge reality. The fact that Jews are disproportionately powerful in many institutions of influence, which is also a grievance I know many non-Jews have with Jews, but that's certainly going to impact institutional support for Israel. But I do think that there's a case to be made that the part of what energizes the masses could be anti-Semitism. Not could be, I think it is, right? I think if you look at all the factors that energize the masses, anti-Semitism is one of them. So one is on an institutional level, the other is in the masses. I think there's kind of like a counterbalance there. In terms of if another country was doing this, I think it depends on what that country was, because if that country was not an ally of the West, then I don't think we would see nearly as much protest. Because
look at Turkey, for example. Turkey is a good example because it's an Islamic country and they're doing the same thing to the Kurdish population. So
is it the same
you
thing
will
though?
not see. I wouldn't say the same thing, but maybe now. I'm actually, to tell you the truth, someone actually said to me the other day, well, what about the Kurds? And I said, okay, the Kurdish solution is perfect. They're now citizens of Turkey. They now in the government, they're part of the Turkish society. So it's actually an example of a one-state solution. It's not the best solution, but it's technically, if you want to invoke the Kurdish-Turkish situation, then okay, then invoke the Kurdish-Turkish solution, which was basically to incorporate them in the state, and now they're part of the Republic of Turkey. So, but the thing is that what you don't see is Kurdish people do have sympathy. There is, in the West, especially in Europe, the Kurdish situation in Europe is actually pretty strong. There's a strong presence of people who are activists for the Kurdish cause, like especially in Sweden, especially in Germany, you have a very strong active, but you don't see the element of, like, you will see them demonizing Turkey as, this Islamic oppressive and this. You won't find that in Israel. So see how people treat Turkey. Turkey is an ally of the West because of NATO, because of their strength, and because of their economics. But they don't have that element. You'll still see that element. Yeah, they are that country that we don't want in the EU. Yeah, they're NATO, but we accept them. But Israel has a special heart.
Well, right, but you're talking about the institutional support. I agree. Yeah. I agree.
And I think that the institutional support is the reason why we're having such a big obstacle. And unfortunately, the institutional support is also what fuels, because this institutional support and those who are in the institution are trying to deflect that it's because you're anti-Semitic. It's not because you're against injustice. And I think that this has actually done more harm against people who are fighting anti-Semitism than anything. People are running with this. And I do think that, and I'm not going to tell you that anti-Semitism doesn't have a role in all this. Of course it does. But on the other hand, it being used as a shield has done more harm than actual anti-Semitism itself. It's like throwing gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, this is, I agree. I think in many ways, and we could do a full hour dedicated to this, but Israel's existence currently, how Israel's acting and how it exists, is one of the greatest fuels to the fire that is anti-Semitism, for many reasons, right? Just the association, the Jewish state. So when you see the Jewish state committing atrocities, you associate that with the Jews. That's one. Second, people are rightfully troubled with what they see in Gaza. But if you see the majority of the Jews you meet are supportive of what's happening in Gaza, that's going to impact how you feel about Jews. There's no way it doesn't. The same way, and I say this to my Jewish friends, if most Muslims you met were supportive of terrorism, would that not contribute to Islamophobia? Obviously it would. There's no denying that. And then the next one is when people want to try to understand why the West is often blindly supportive of Israel and why the US, in almost on a cringe level, how politicians talk about Israel and their support for Israel, and you try to assess what causes that, you're like, oh, it must be Jewish power, it must be Jewish influence, right? So that also fuels anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish sentiment. And then there's also just the weaponization of accusations of anti-Semitism to shut down legitimate criticism of Israel, which just gets people to not take conversations on anti-Semitism seriously anymore because of how it's weaponized. So it troubles me, honestly. This is going to be for generations, right? So much of anti-Semitism is rooted in people believing that we do horrible things. And often it's either rooted in conspiracy, it's either something we didn't do. Oh, we got a little dragonfly. Hey, buddy. See if I could pick him up. No, okay. Where were we? Sorry, the dragonfly threw me off. Oh yeah, anti-Semitism is often rooted in conspiracy, things that Jews did not do, or they take actions of some Jews and attribute it to the whole. But this has been such a prevalent narrative throughout history, primarily in Europe, that is constantly reinforced from generation to generation. Each new story about the Jew just confirms the other stories. They're like, oh, wait, if Jews did this, that means all the other stuff must be true. And so it's hard enough to convince anti-Semites otherwise. The story of anti-Semitism is quite compelling. That's why it stood the test of time. For a story to pass many generations, it doesn't need to be true. It needs to be compelling. So now, when you have a situation where overwhelmingly Jews are supportive of Israel, still and supportive of what Israel is doing in Gaza, and often it's just a place of just blind support. They're not even aware of the facts on the ground. They still believe most moral army in the world, low civilian to combatant ratio in history. That's what they believe to be true. But when the world sees this, like, okay, wait a minute. If most Jews support this, maybe everything they've said about them in history is also true, right? People are going through that process. Currently, we're seeing that process happen to the masses, and it's concerning. And it's going to take generations to work through this. It's something we're going to deal with for a long time. And what also troubles me is these aren't even conversations that you can really have. This conversation on its own is considered to many to be anti-Semitic and unacceptable, and victim blaming. That's what people say. That's victim blaming, when that's not at all what's happening here. Just to try to assess what's happening in society. But this is for whatever reason a taboo conversation. Yeah. We got our work cut out for us.
And that was kind of what the question that I was deriving with Dr. Sapir was, that the problem isn't where we need to go. I think that most of us do have a kind of a clearer idea where we need to go. It's just the problem of how we're getting there. And this is why I was saying that the disconnect is that if, for example, say Israel decided that we need to separate, there's negotiations aren't working, nothing is going to work. We just need to separate so that we can deal with our, worldwide anti-Semitism, our security here. And the Palestinians need to get their institutions in order and build this stuff. I would say that's a good idea. Let's just draw a line and say, everybody get your shit together and come back when you're ready to speak and establish, ties and economic and political and trade and all that other stuff. But the problem is that this is too much, and you can't have this, because, like, for example, the 22 settlements that were announced just a few months ago, they were all settlements deep inside the West Bank. So it's like, even if you did an disengagement plan and just said, let's just separate and everybody, let's a cool off period and stuff like that. But there's just these powers that are operating, particularly the settlement movements, that are purposely, and I think it's state sponsored. I think it's intentionally. It's not my mistake. It's not this. And that's why what makes this work impossible. This work's impossible because these agencies are working to purposely derail. And as long as the state and the people, and that's why these are the first things that need to be attacked. These are the first things that need to be attacked and cured, is that these institutions, these people, and these movements, they are more dangerous than to both of us. And that's what I was trying to get with Dr. Sapir, is that you know, we can sit and talk for another 10 years, but in another 10 years, we're going to have over 1 million and probably like 1,200,000 settlers. And then what? And that's what I feel, that this is the biggest obstacle that we have. You know, you might hate me forever. I might hate you forever. I might forever believe that Jews are evil, or Israel doesn't need to exist, or I could believe that for the rest of my life. But okay, fine. Everybody go to their corner, cool off, you know, become moderate, you know, and build your institutions, whatever, etc. But the problem is that we can't even do that, because why? We have this agencies that is going around and basically undermining our existence at the time, our actual existence, not just, you know, and that's what makes it more difficult from our side.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, cool. What do you guys want to do? You guys want to hop in the chill room from here? I'm going to wrap up the stream. I'll wrap up the stream and then we'll decide what we want to do. All right, we're going to wrap it up. I guess I'll do 2 more quick questions just because I see them. What's that, Levy?
No, I was just going to say thank you and bye. But,
Thanks for joining. Yeah, we'll wrap up the stream and then we'll hop over into the chill room. ITS says, do you think what changed Bibi to enter aid was international pressure, or actually thinking for civilians? No, definitely international pressure. I don't think he cares at all about what happens to Gazan civilians at all. You're saying, are the killed people from aid also counted? You're saying, are the people killed for aid counted in the Ministry of Health data? Yeah, they're reported there. I mean, they should be. There's no reason why they wouldn't be. Cool. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks for joining. Whoever wants to join the after party on Discord, we'll drop a link. Well, you can find it in the description or in my bio on Twitter, or I'll drop it here in chat. And conversation will continue. With that, signing off. Next stream will be sometime this weekend. We'll do one of those fun long streams where we review videos and shit like that. So see you then.